Thank you, Acting President. Now, this bill might sound boring, but it's one that we should be paying a lot of attention to. Now, the bill is all about connecting intermittent renewable energy projects to the grid. Now, the government will say about about connecting all sorts of energy generation sources to the grid, but the fact is that the intermittent generation sources will be probably the ones that benefit the most from this bill. Now, the bill sets up a new framework on what the capital costs project proponents need to pay to connect their generation sources to the grid. Now, the capital contribution from the proponent will consist of two components. The direct capital costs to connect up to the project, and then the whole of system cost connecting the project to the grid. The direct costs are clear and need to be covered by the project proponent. Now, that being the transmission lines and transformers that connect the project to the existing grid. It's the second part of the equation that is the issue for me. Now, since the government has no idea of what the whole of system plan is, they of course also have no idea what that whole of system cost will be in connecting the projects to the grid. We don't know how many new generators they'll need, or how many will be built, where they will be built, or what adjustments need to be made to the rest of the network to accommodate them changes. Now, our understanding, or my understanding, is that the government has decided to just guess a figure and they've set it at about $100,000 per 1 megawatt generation of power being installed. I mean, how did the government come up with that figure? It seems like they asked the renewable proponents on what they want to pay, and then that's the figure they sort of come up with. I mean, what this bill actually does is transfers the risk from the project proponent to the taxpayer. We were told the minister consulted with stakeholders on this bill, and we were told that most supported it, but two of them did not. We tried to find out who opposed it, but we haven't been told that. I suspect that it might have been Western Power, who are required to act with prudent commercial principles. Maybe Western Power pointed out that lumping them in with the cost and the risk of renewable energy transition was not prudent at all. We're also told the Economic Regulation Authority was consulted. I wonder what they had to say about the state taking on risk and liability on behalf of multinational corporations. The government may claim that they can use Western Power as a state development tool, and that is true. However, they're choosing to use Western Power to enable renewable energy projects, but they don't do the same to enable Western Power to facilitate more houses being built at a lower cost. Now, this bill should not be supported by anyone in this chamber. It transfers unknown costs and risks from the private sector to the taxpayer to achieve an ideological goal. This is just not good practice, and that is why One Nation opposes this bill. We think the energy transition will cost like billions more dollars and will increase household and business electricity costs. Synergy is already being subsidised with billions of taxpayer money to hide the true costs of intermittent renewable energy sources already. In the future, it'll be billions more in subsidies, or it'll mean unaffordable electricity bills for WA families and businesses. This is the money that could be spent on schools, hospitals, more police, safer roads, many other things that would be a much better choice to use that money on. So I encourage other members here to also oppose this bill based on this very simple fact. The capital cost equation is based on the whole of system cost of accommodating generation projects, but the government has not got a whole of system plan. We've heard the honourable member Steve Thomas talk about how they've switched over to, calling it now the Future Energy System Outlook, because they didn't have a plan. And so how can they know what the cost is going to be? Agreeing to this bill will expose future generations and West Australians to unacceptable financial risks. Now, if members are comfortable with that, I mean, I guess they'll support it, but if members want to be seen as responsible money managers, they shouldn't be writing blank cheques not knowing what the actual cost of this is going to be, because, as we've heard many times, there's never been forthcoming in a whole-of-system plan, and now we get to that point, as I've heard earlier on the honourable member talk about, again, like I said, changing over to that outlook, but they didn't even succeed in, giving us a plan to start with. So, in summary, you just can't guess at a whole-of-system cost. We need a whole-of-system plan first, and then you could look at whether it's a good idea. Once you know what the plan is, what it's actually going to look like, and you would get a much better idea of a cost then, and then you can make a better judgment on whether you think it's a good idea. But basically just writing blank cheques and saying, oh, you want to follow this ideological dream and have all this renewable is madness. So, well, there's plenty of debates on about whether it's cheap or not. So that's why One Nation will do the responsible. Yeah, we know about your science. You don't know the difference between a man and a woman, so don't tell me about science. So anyway,
order, members. Order. Honourable Rodcaddies.
So that's why One Nation will be responsible and will not be supporting this bill. Thank you, President. Yeah.